Hello, friends, I made this for. I am Lauren. I'm coming from the beautiful Philadelphia in front of a canvas that I primed because the background might be nice. Hey! And I'm grateful to be here. It is Thanksgiving, and I like to just look at this as Gratitude Day. I'm grateful for this day. Um, that way we don't keep it so colonialized. Um, And yeah, I'm also really grateful because it's Sag season. Sag season is a nice change. It's like just one of those things where we've gone through a lot this season. And that's kind of what I want to reflect on first is like what this season kind of means um, more broadly before we look at it through the tarot. Of course, if we're looking at the Living Wheel deck, this is Sagittarius, the constellation. So this is where we get connected to in this time of year. This is a good time to look at where Sagittarius might be in your chart. See how that shows up for you and how it resonates with you in this season. I personally have a Mars in Sagittarius, which I feel really good about. So yeah, if you don't have any Sag in your chart, you can always check and see what planets are in the ninth house, which is ruled by Sagittarius. So if you don't have anything in Sagittarius, that's okay. Just kind of look through and see what's in the ninth house if you have anything. My midhaven is in Aries, and my Pallas Athena Athene are in Aries, and those are both in the ninth house. So, kind of double up on the fire in my chart. I'm using this day to also relax, so I just got out of the shower. Hi. So those are some ways we can kind of connect with Sag just in our chart personally is look where those things are. So what do those things mean? Well, a phrase for Sagittarius is I see. Sagittarius is a very spiritual sign. One person described to me if Aries, another fire sign, is the spark and Leo is the flame, then Sagittarius is the heat we feel from the fire. That heat that is not, that's being emitted from the flame. So there's this connection to a very spiritual, you can't see it, you can feel it kind of thing. So Sagittarius is, well, as we'll see, a very spiritual card in the tarot. So how can we break that down a little more? Well, ninth house, which is ruled by Sagittarius, is journey. That's a word that comes from the Living Wheel, journey. So we can look at Sagittarius as almost a spiritual journey. Education, teaching, things like that are associated with Sagittarius, and it's kind of this deliverance of spiritual knowledge, if we're looking at it through that way. But one thing I wanted to note is the fact that Sagittarius is mutable fire. So we have three signs, three parts to a season. We have the initiator, which is our cardinal. We have our kind of like deep work of that season, what we're kind of like in for that season, which is the fixed sign. And then we have the mutable, which is the transition, or seen to be as the transition. I like to look at it as initiator, work, and integration. So if Libra was the initiator of this season and had us reflecting on what works and what doesn't work through justice and balancing the scales of Libra, and Scorpio was the actual shadow work inside, letting things die, this transition of doing that, the practice to really better ourselves and our spiritual teaching. Oh, Libra. And this is what kind of initiates us into the season. And death is kind of like the workhorse of the season. This is what we're like really digging up and through. Then Sagittarius is, how are we integrating the medicine, the spiritual work? Because that's kind of like the ultimate step, right? We can't just look at shit and decide, this works and this doesn't, and then have like these big transformations and not integrate them, right? We have to do that work to make it stick. It doesn't make sense to not finish it, you know? That's basically what Sag is connecting us with. And so that's what temperance is. Temperance is the integration. Sag is the integration. So we're taking what we've done, the shadow work in Scorpio, that we reflected on in Libra to get to, with justice, acknowledging what needed to go, letting it go, and doing that shadow work. We're in the emotional waters to, this is where we have to do some extra stuff to make sure that the work is working. So there's an interesting way of looking at this. Of course, first of all, hi, if you've never been here, we're going to go through other cards to reflect. Hi. This is where we kind of see this is the symbol for fire, right? So we have this fire and water kind of aspect to it, which is very fitting, because when we talk about mutable signs, we can also see that as water signs. So water as this energy of flux, where we're having this transition, the transition of seasons. So any mutable sign comes at the end of a season, and that's when you see the transition. So like, for example, right now in the Northeast, it's windy as fuck because we're transitioning to winter. We're basically already gearing up for winter here. There's just a few leaves left on the tree outside my window, and they're all getting blown the fuck off right now. Because in the Northeast, that's how our seasons go. At least in Philly, it gets windy as shit, and it's miserable. And everybody's trash cans are blown all throughout the neighborhood. It's great. So this is a calmer reflection of that. So what are we actually looking at here? And what are the invitations that we can reflect on for this season? So, reflections. Temperance. It's this kind of spiritual work. So we do the shadow work and then from death. And what's interesting is death comes right before temperance in the major arcana. So if we're kind of looking at it that way as well, like they're right back to back. So there's this death and transformation idea, right? We have done the work, we've died a little, it was great, or painful, or maybe it was both great and painful, and then we're here, and we see this angel with this kind of like halo around their head, and I guess another word that comes to me, I know we talked about it in Judgment, but it's this idea of resurrection. We're on the other side of our own death, and we have our toe in the water. There's this idea of being within both worlds, which again, like I said, this is a spiritual card, this is a spiritual sign. So this is where we're doing spiritual work. Maybe we're doing the work as a teacher for others, now that we're on the other side of our Scorpio season. We're able to share what we know, and we see these like cups being poured in a way that is absolutely unrealistic. What the fuck does that mean? Well, one word that I really like to bring up for this card is alchemy. So we've done the work in distilling, and in alchemy there's different ways of There's different processes to kind of distill this essence from something. And we can kind of see in death, we are distilling an essence, and then we're kind of like bringing that essence in to be medicine. So what does that mean, and like how is that knowledge helpful to us? You're asking a lot of questions of me. Why? Well, it's an invitation for us to become the transmuters of our earthly knowledge, right? We have to be able to bring this into a practice that makes sense. It's one thing to have an existential crisis on your own, but once we step out of that space, Sag season and Temperance as a card is an invitation to promote that spiritual work to others, to engage in how we share with community, and do what kind of seems impossible. Like the way that they are pouring this water, it seems fucking nuts, right? But it is work that can be done. We're seeing it, and it's something that we're being asked to do after all of that. So how does Temperance look in other decks? That was the Morgan Greer. I have three other decks to kind of reflect on, these being actual tarot cards. The Fountain Tarot and the Way Home Tarot. So what is the invitation here? And of course, these are both going to come up to be very otherworldly. This is the Fountain Tarot, and of course, we see some connection right away to this very classical version, right? We still see the single person, but there's no, there's this connection to the higher source here. We're channeling, right? There's still the cups that are being poured in a way that's completely unreasonable. We have the foot still in the water, almost as if we're still connected to the lessons of the watery season that was Scorpio. We're still feeling and experiencing that. We're still transmuting that energy. We're still making that work. Makes sense for us, but we're not like in it. And we also see this kind of feeling of solitude. So maybe not necessarily something that we have to share yet, but an opportunity to reflect on how we can process this and then share it if we feel called to do so. I also love the peace. It's a little hard to see, but the peacefulness within this person's face. Can you see it? There's this relaxation and understanding of the higher source, the connection that this person has to source, and what that means for them as they're really just like channeling. There's that mutable energy to me that really showcases like, how am I integrating deeper this lesson? So yeah, there's that one, and of course a really interesting view of this card. I think a lot of cards use, I feel like I've seen a few other cards use this, but this is another card that really reads alchemy to me. The Way Home Tarot is this incredible, like, hi, what's up? This image of the peacock. And so what are we being asked to kind of observe here? Well, we see fire, we see crystals, we see water, and we see feathers. So there's this connection to the angel, yeah, with the wings, a little bit, yeah. But there's also this connection to all the elements are being shown to us here. We see a fire, we see crystals, we see water, and air through the wings and the feathers. So, but again, we see this connection to distilling and illuminating. So it's not just there's always this light, right? There's always this light that's kind of present, at least in these three. It's, if you take out your Temperance in your deck, it might not be that way. But what I at least can observe from my decks that I'm sharing with you right now is, yes, there's this connection to the illumination, this, but not overpowering. I mean, this is kind of like, hey, I'm loud, what up? But I don't really feel it as an overpowering thing in temperance, where it's this warm embrace of calming energy for healing, for collective source. So yeah, definitely connect with where your temperance and your deck kind of like, what does it have to show you anytime you're looking at your tarot. A good way to connect with your card for the season is to just like, what is it saying? What is it showing you? That's all. But like I said, I have one more card to kind of reflect on, and I like this deck. It's not an actual tarot deck. It kind of is, and it kind of isn't. But like I said, 14 is temperance. So 14 in, we're going to put the psychic tarot over the heart. I lost the box. Anyway, it's around here somewhere. The psychic tarot oracle deck. So it's a little bit of both. What does 14 temperance look like in this? I think it's kind of interesting, and I don't know if I really totally agree with it, but it's patience. So what is the invitation here, if we can kind of like use this as a place to expand upon? Well, temperance does show us a lot of patience, right? There's definitely this reflection still, this like connection to how we allow our spiritual self to grow. Like I said, the integration is kind of like what all this work of the season has been about. Like, if you can't integrate it, what was the point? If you can't make it be a part of your life, what's the point? That's kind of, anytime we look at a mutable sign, it's an invitation to integrate everything. We're not just preparing ourselves for the next season, we're preparing through integrating. So what might be required now is the patience, because remember, we're gearing up towards Scorpio season. Capricorn season, which is our initiator of winter. Can't wait. It's my season. But it is a lot of work, because Capricorn is about structure. It's also about the devil. We'll get into that another day, obviously. But Capricorn is something that requires us to be prepared for. Every sign requires us to prepare beforehand, right? So patience can be a invitation this season. Where are we kind of deepening this knowledge of temperance, this knowledge of the spiritual self that we distilled from death, this journey that we're going through as a ninth house experience in what we can see. You know, we illuminate, we can see where things really are at. But this might require some patience, some preparation, because winter is coming. If we want to look at it like fucking Game of Thrones, winter is coming. It literally is coming. Oh my god. So this spiritual preparation requires our patience. It requires us to listen to everything that we learned and go, okay, so how does this work for me? And so yeah, that's my reflections for Sag season through the tarot, and what it might call for you. Like I said, pull out your temperance card and just observe it. Just like sit with it and ask it, what am I integrating right now? You know, take out all three if you can and just like reflect. Go through your journal and see, like, what was I going through in Libra season that I then kind of dove into more in Scorpio season, and how can I utilize that in knowledge and make it soul connected energy to me in Sag season, so that I'm ready for the fucking devil that is Capricorn. Nay. Anyway, that's all I got for you today. So I'll probably do this again tomorrow, and I love you. Bye.